Hey everyone, welcome to another edition of The Bullet. My name is Paul Lathrop. I'm the Deputy Director of New Media for the Second Amendment Foundation. Joining me today, live from the almost free state of Massachusetts, Charlie Cook. Charlie, of course, riding shotgun with Charlie, writing shotgun with Charlie, Charlie's gun grabs, and all kinds of other things. Charlie, thanks for coming along for the ride, man.
Always a pleasure, man. It just seems like 24 hours ago we were doing something similar to this.
Yeah, 20, as of this moment, 23 and a half, I think. So, or 22 and a half, because we were about an hour and a half into polite society. Charlie and I were having a conversation pre-show, and we were talking about losing our hair and gaining more something or another. But anyway, let's. I want to get started today, Charlie. We have two things that I want to bring up. And first of all, let me get up a comment because this is where I was wanting to go. From DJ Play Nice over on the YouTube side, our governor signed LB 77 in Nebraska today. It's our constitutional carry bill. A moment of celebration for us should be followed by a moment of silence for those still subject to restrictions. Congratulations, Nebraska. My understanding is that goes into effect 90 days after the end of the legislative session, which September, I guess, is when it's supposed to go into effect. So we'll see.
I thought it was 90 days. I thought it was 90 days from today, at the end of July.
Yeah, I've seen both. I've seen 90 days from signing. I've seen 90 days from the end of the session. I'm not a Nebraska expert, so DJ, right. When does that go into effect, DJ?
Yes, congratulations to our Husker friends.
Absolutely. And being an old radio guy, I don't do a moment of silence. That's not in me. Dead air is the ultimate evil and should be prevented at all circumstances. Let's go ahead and get started by saying that if you're following us on YouTube, you can you can comment. We'll get your comments, and we'll get your comments up on the air if you're talking about what we're talking about, and not losing all your hair and gaining more. But if you're talking about what we're talking about, we'll get your comment on the air. Facebook, if you're watching us on the Polite Society podcast page, we get those comments right away as well. If you're watching us anywhere else on Facebook, we go out to three different pages. We may or may not get it right away. But as long as the comment comes in, it's talking about what we're talking about, I'll get you on the air. We'll discuss it. Woods on the YouTube side says, congratulations, Nebraska. Well, not all of our stories are great stories, and something else happened today that was in Washington State that is not so great, Charlie. Governor Inslee signed that abomination of House Bill 1240. And then I got a press release early this afternoon from our home offices in Bellevue responding quickly to the adoption of House Bill 1240 by the Washington legislature and Governor Jay Inslee signing it into law. The Second Amendment Foundation today filed a federal lawsuit challenging the new statute on Second and 14th Amendment grounds and is asking the court for preliminary and permanent injunctions. A complaint was filed in the U.S. District Court for the Western District of Washington, known as Hereford versus Ferguson. Joining the SAF are Firearms Policy Coalition Sporting Systems, a Hazeldale retailer, and 3 private citizens. The state has enacted a flat prohibition on the manufacture, sale, import, and distribution of many types of firearms inaccurately labeled as assault weapons, which are used by millions of ordinary citizens across the country, said SAF founder and executive vice president Alan Gottlieb. In the process, the state has criminalized a common and important means of self-defense, the modern semi-automatic rifle. The state has put politics ahead of constitutional rights and is penalizing law-abiding citizens while this legislation does nothing to arrest and prosecute criminals who misuse firearms in defiance of all existing gun control laws. It is absurd. He noted that the SAF already has 2 legal actions in process challenging Washington gun laws. One lawsuit concerns a magazine ban. The other challenges the ban on sales of semi-automatic rifles to young adults. The hysteria is manufactured by the authors and supporters of this legislation and is rivaled only by the false characterization of the banned weapons as weapons of war, said SAF Executive Director Adam Kraut. As we noted in our complaint, the firearms that Washington bans as assault weapons are in all respect ordinary semi-automatic rifles. To the extent they are different from other semi-automatic rifles, their distinguishing features make them safer and easier to use. But even if they are considered as a separate group of assault weapons, they cannot be banned because they are not dangerous or unusual. We will take this court to the highest court in the land if necessary, Kraut added. This sort of legislative demagoguery cannot be allowed to stand. Great word, demagoguery. That's a great word. Charlie, it's official. It got signed in Nebraska. We got one state going for freedom. Nebraska, we got one state going away from freedom. Washington State. What's your thoughts, dude?
So let's face it, they want to ban assault weapons, which we know I can't say without making that voice. A couple years ago, Washington came out and said, your Ruger 1022, a 10-round semi-automatic rifle shooting bullets the size of Tic Tacs, is an assault weapon. So this expanding the definition of assault weapon is completely ridiculous, particularly if it means it's going to be all semi-automatic. So, I mean, it's completely nuts. The other thing I was thinking was this: it's a great oh my gosh, Yogi Berra quote. Nobody goes there anymore. It's too crowded. And this exactly has to do with these are weapons of war. They're in common use. There's millions of them out there. You can't say they're not in common use if there's millions of them out there. Same thing with the pistol braces. If there are truly 40 million pistol braces out there, that is common use.
And let's go beyond that even. There are places trying to ban magazines saying, well, the criminals use them. And 40 million, I own about a third of that myself in magazines that are beyond. I mean, obviously I'm exaggerating the word, but I've got a lot of magazines that are beyond 10 rounds.
Yeah.
We're getting all kinds of comments in. Let me get to a few of them. DJ Play Nice says it was announced both ways 90 days following signing and September both. Not sure of either. Been too excited to notice announcements after signing today. And speaking of Washington, Woods says the sky isn't falling, but it sucks. Come on, courts. And that brings up something, Charlie. We filed today. It's not going to be decided tomorrow. It's not going to be decided the day after tomorrow. It's going to take a little bit. And I think Charlie froze up on me. Charlie definitely froze up on me. Let me come over here and find out what happened. Yeah, Charlie wants to know, am I frozen? He sent me a text message. Yes, you are frozen. And let me get a couple more comments in, then if I absolutely have to, I'll take off by myself. Woods also says, shouldn't Aero sue as well? They're out of business unless they move. Yeah, Aero Precision is Washington State based. And yeah, I do believe they're going to have to move. And I'd be surprised if they weren't a part of at least one lawsuit that has already been filed or coming in. I do not know for sure if they're part of the SAF suit or not. I want to do one look at one more thing here before I take off. Yeah, he's just gone. So Gerald. Oh, I love this one. Gerald says, giving the cold stare against gun control. All right. And Brooke says, that's the longest Charlie has ever stayed still. If I can get Charlie back, we're gonna run those up again. But let me go ahead and go on now. And please keep comments coming in, because I don't usually do this alone. But let me go ahead and go on here. This is from the Citizens Committee for the Right to Keep and Bear Arms, sister organization to SAF. This is also a press release released today. Washington Democrat Governor Jay Inslee this morning signed legislation requiring gun buyers to provide proof they have completed a firearms training course before being allowed to complete their transaction. But the Citizens Committee for the Right to Keep and Bear Arms is calling this equivalence of a literacy test that was used to discourage voting by minorities in the South. We're talking about rights in both cases, said CCR KBA Chairman Alan Gottlieb. For Jay Inslee or other Democrat to contend this is different suggests they're either dishonest or delusional, or perhaps a little bit of both. House Bill 1143 explicitly states on page 2 that the purchaser of a firearm provides proof of completion of a recognized firearm safety training program within the last 5 years that complies with requirements set down in the second section of the bill. This legislation is part of the, just a second here, I'm trying to get my mouse to respond. The legislation is part of the radical Democrat push to make Washington gun laws prohibitively restrictive within the Article 1, Section 24 of the state constitution. Doggone it. Give me just a second here. I'm trying to get a mouse back, and it's not working very well. So I'm telling you, if there's not one issue, it's another, and if it's not that issue, it is a third. So let me try plugging this in over here. That seems to have worked. And then I got to plug this one in over here. And that seems to have worked. Do I have a mouse back? Yes, I do. Okay. Let me get to a quote from Alan Gottlieb. This requirement, along with the 10-day waiting period, seem like impairments to us. When the governor earlier this year compared this requirement to getting training before being issued a license to drive, he ignored one important point, and he knows it. Driving is a privilege, but keeping and bearing arms is a right protected by both state and federal constitutions, and there's nothing in either of these provisions about training or waiting. Let me get some comments in here. First of all, let me start with Woods, and Charlie is back. So let me get a comment in from Woods. Charlie's right, 1639 said that. And then
this is how I like to come back to the show.
Well, and hang on a second, because our next comment is from Brooke. She says, that is the longest Charlie has ever stayed still.
I wasn't still. I was crapping my pants.
Sisters in Arms, Carrie Ann, our colleague that appears on Polite Society, says, we're quiet. So
these are my friends.
They are. And then let's see here. Wood says, I reminded tons of friends that this is a battle. The war continues. There is no finish line. For a very long time now, and Charlie's familiar with this, my boss, Alan Gottlieb, has been talking about retiring. And it's always been, well, we've got so much going on. We've got so much going on. And then Bruin happened last summer, and the talk got serious. And not from my boss, but from others. Is Alan going to go now that we've got Bruin, now that we've got this from the federal government? This is just more evidence, man, that it took from the 1930s to the 2020s to get to where things start to swing back. We're not going to get back to the laws of the 1930s by 2023, 2024, 2025. So will Alan retire? Yes, someday Alan will retire. Probably won't be tomorrow. That's part of why Adam Kraut is coming in to help lead SAF. But, man, we're going to have a war for a while.
Yeah, it's going to be a long time. I mean, I know that. I used to listen to more talk radio than I listen to now, and occasionally I'd listen to Rush. And one of the things he said when, oh my gosh, I think it was George Bush was elected after the Clinton years. Somebody said to Rush, they're like, "Hey, are you going to go off the air now? Like, you're going to retire? The Republicans are in office." And he's like, "Democrats aren't going anywhere. They're still going to be around." And I can't emphasize that enough. The anti-gun folks are not going anywhere. And the more that we stick up for our rights, the more that we win things like Bruin, the more they dig their heels in and make this stuff more, make what they want more ridiculous. Like we just saw with Inslee. He wants to call a Ruger 1022 an assault weapon. Yep. And then he wants to ban assault weapons because it's a Ruger 1022. I mean, you can't get any more simple and basic than a 1022.
No, you really can't. I mean, look, this is not a commercial for Ruger, okay? The Ruger is dead on reliable. The Ruger is a great training tool, the 1022 I'm speaking of. And talk about common use. The AR is, because so many companies manufacture it, I'm sure there are more ARs out there than 1022s, but the 1022 in and of itself has got to have a few million of them out there. It is what everybody my age, when you got your first firearm, there was a very good chance it was a Ruger 1022. And it's a great training tool, and it teaches safety. It teaches responsibility. It teaches what we want young people to be.
Absolutely. It's great for marksmen. It's great for new shooters. It's not a big gun. It's not overbearing. It's not heavy. It shoots 22s. There's no recoil. There's a clap for a for the what's what I'm looking for the report. There's nothing to it, and they make these by the millions, and you can accessorize the snot out of them.
You can make them look like an AR.
You totally can. I have in one of the slides that I use in one of my classes, I have a 1022, and then I have a 1022 with a pistol grip, a collapsible stock, a high cap magazine, a 4-in grip, a red dot sight, a carry handle, and a scope on it. And I say one of them is a Prius, and the other one's a Prius with racing stripes, nice rims, and spoiler on it.
Spinner rims?
All it is. Sure, why not?
All right. And you've got a lot of friends out there, so hold on,
great.
Charlie. Let's get some comments in again. Charlie wears boots? He seems like a loafer type. Care to comment on your footwear, dude?
So I'm wearing slippers right now.
I got to see you in a smoking or in a robe.
Smoking in a robe, yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, I have a robe. I don't wear it. I have one. So here's my deal with the footwear. For the last 10 years, at least 10 years, I've been wearing, are you ready for this, boots? Doc Marten loafers, because I like easy on, easy off. I thought about upgrading to like the bootlets that go over your boot, over your ankle, because those are pretty rock and roll. You know, Jerry Lee and Elvis used to wear those. Back in the 90s, I was all about wearing cowboy boots. Absolutely. I had I think 4 or 5 cowboy boots that I wore because that was really rock and roll. And I wore cowboy boots. This is great. I wore cowboy boots. I played in a Motown disco funk band. I listened to country music, and I taught in public schools.
So
I was an
Charlie
enigma.
was doing the boot scooting boogie.
Right. And that's when you had hair, and I was concerned about stuff. You know?
All right.
I would love to go back to cowboy boots. So I'm putting that out there. If I didn't carry where I carry, I'm considering changing where I carry so I can wear boots.
There you go.
How did we get on boots? How did my footwear?
Let me tell you how he got there. Brooke said,
was I gone that long?
Brooke said Charlie is rebooting, and that's how he got Woods to say Charlie wears boots.
Charlie wears boots.
And then Brooke says, "We love you, Charlie." And then Woods follows up with, "Charlie is okay, but he's no Brooke Cheney. Said would love Charlie."
Yeah, I'd much rather hang out with Brooke Cheney than me too.
Let me get another one for talking about what we're talking about. Brooke also says, everyone I know, if they have one 1022, they usually have 2. And Roderick from the Facebook site says, the 1022 is 58 years old. Gerald, again, we're just all kinds of comments coming in. Great.
Yeah, this is great.
Great gun to introduce people to semi-automatics. It absolutely is. And Carrie Ann follows up with awesome for Appleseed. Charlie, have you done an Appleseed?
You know what? I did an Appleseed last year. It was the first time I did an Appleseed. I had a Smith & Wesson 1522 that I used. I have the big 10-round magazines because I live in occupied territory. I did buy some small 10-round magazines. And I will tell you, they have 3 qualifications. They have marksman, sharpshooter, and rifleman.
Right.
Those are the qualifications. I scored as an Englishman. That's how. That's how I scored.
That's going to leave a mark.
If we were relying on me in 1775, we would be drinking warm beer, driving on the right hand side, the left hand side of the road, and we would all have bad teeth. So, yeah.
Yeah. Well, and I speaking of when I took a trip down to where the picture is behind me, there's one place in the United States where they drive on the left-hand side of the road. That is the Virgin Islands. The thing about that is they use cars with left-hand drive. They use the same cars we use up here, but they drive on the wrong side of the road with them. If you go anywhere else in the world where they drive on the wrong side of the road, the steering wheel is on the wrong side of the car.
Oh my God.
So, it's impossible to pass in the Virgin Islands, is what that makes it.
What I'm hearing is don't drink and drive in the Virgin Islands. Not that you should be drinking and driving at all.
Yes.
Weren't we talking about guns at some point?
At some point, Brooke wants to know if Nebraska's number 28 for permitless carry. No, they're number 27.
27. Tisk, tisk, tisk.
28 probably will come this year, either Louisiana, North Carolina. Who else is in the mix? South Carolina, but that would be a push. There are other states that are not yet permitless that have it, that they're working on it. I know for a fact that Louisiana and North Carolina are looking at it. And North Carolina would have to pass it above with a veto-proof majority and then override a veto because their Democrat governor would certainly veto the bill.
Well, if Mark Robinson gets elected next year,
yeah,
it could be a touchdown.
Let me get Spartan. You can't count Tennessee as permitless carry. That's the law there, man. I know that there's a a clause, and I'm looking for a Tennessee attorney to come on, Spartan. I know there's a clause, or there's a law in Tennessee where going with intent to be armed or something to that effect. But
I recently joined the Tennessee Firearm Association, and I started listening to their podcasts. And their podcasts are radio interviews of the president of the TFA, which is kind of cool. And it's interesting to hear them talk about how permitless carry or constitutional carry isn't truly permitless carry, and it's not what they say it is, which is kind of interesting. And of course, coming from occupied territory, I'll take it.
Yeah, you're getting the violin out to play them a little
right.
tune.
Yes, exactly. My heart bleeds for you.
All right. Let's see here. Let me get a couple more. Carrie Ann says 27 is good. Going forward is good. Absolutely. Woods, and here we go. The 1022 is not included in the 1240 ban. So,
all right, well, that's good news. Then I certainly will be corrected on that. Thank God. I know they wanted to do that a couple years ago.
Yeah, absolutely. I'm going to skip way down in show notes here. We're running out of time. We got less than 3 minutes left. But I want to get this story as a judge holds standard capacity magazines are not in common use for self-defense. This off of ammoland.com. In the case of Hansen versus District of Columbia, in the District Court of the District of Columbia, on April 20th, 2023, federal judge Rudolph Contreras issued an opinion holding standard capacity magazines, which hold more than 10 rounds of ammunition, are not protected under the rights which the Second Amendment was written to protect. Judge Contreras acknowledges magazines that hold more than 10 rounds are in common use in the United States of America, and he also acknowledges that they are arms as defined by the words of the Second Amendment. He goes to great lengths to determine magazines that hold more than 10 rounds are not included under the rights of the Second Amendment. The linguistic juggling to accomplish this difficult task is impressive, not to mention the stretching and twisting logically. Skipping down in the article, more importantly, Heller too recognized that whether LCMs are in common use is merely the beginning of the analysis. The full inquiry is whether the prohibited weapons are typically possessed for lawful purposes. On that critical question, Heller too expressed uncertainty based upon the record. As it stands, we cannot be certain whether these weapons are commonly used or useful specifically for self-defense. That is the question this court must now resolve. Goes on later to say, well, we don't want criminals to have an advantage over the police. I want the average citizen to have an advantage over the police. I want a 12,823 round magazine. It'll be a bitch to carry, but I want it. I don't care who you are. You should not be able to out-firepower me.
Amen. 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 All right. So this is what I'm thinking as I'm listening to this. So are we now going to have to keep track of criminal use of high-cap magazines as well as lawful uses of high-cap magazines? Because then if they determine that more criminals have high-cap magazines, then they're still in common use, right? But there's no lawful purpose or lawful use of them. And of course, we all know there is probably a huge carve-out for law enforcement who carries high-cap magazines for self-defense.
Let me, again, I'm being nitpicky here, but Charlie, I got to correct you. Standard capacity, please.
Right. This is what you say in free America. we just magazines.
All right. And then last mention here, we're already at our time, but I'm going to get this in real quickly. The bump stock ban did fall in the the Sixth Circuit Court of Appeals did knock down the bump stock ban. That's a huge story in and of itself. It sets up a Supreme or a circuit court split. The 2nd and the 9th have ruled that bump stock ban is constitutional. 6th now, and I expect the 5th will say it's not. And so this does ensure this will probably get to the Supreme Court. Let's see here. And let me, are we going to have to, your question, are we going to have to determine what are used by criminals? Carrie Ann says they don't know how to get that stat. So.
Right.
All right, let me see here. I think we're pretty well caught up, Charlie. We are past the 30-minute mark. If I could, tell everybody about Riding Shotgun with Charlie and anything else you want to plug, bud.
Absolutely. So I just put an episode out today, episode 170 with Jill McDaniel from Mom at Arms. So please check that out on YouTube and download the podcast. You can find it in all the YouTube stuff and all the podcast things as well. And I recently wrote an article about the NRA being the world's largest family reunion, and that is on news2a.com. And I heard from Trampus, the editor at Armed Lifestyle magazine, and he said he absolutely loved my upcoming article that is going to be in the Writing Shotgun article that is going to be in the next issue of the Armed Lifestyle magazine, which I think is coming out in early May. So we'll check that out. Thank you.
The next episode of the magazine. I know
we
are podcasters through and through, man. The next episode of the NRA magazine that comes out, whatever. Yeah, but yeah.
Right.
All right. So, and I want to say specifically to Spartan 6, I am looking to get somebody in authority in Tennessee on the air. I know, good luck with that. But Tennessee has more issues than just that one old law still on the books. There's also Governor Lee's calling the legislature back, trying to push for a red flag law yet this year. Then we briefly touched on that last night on Polite Society. Believe me, I am going to be covering Tennessee in the very near future. But that's the time we have for today. So, Charlie, thank you very much, man.
Happy to do it, man. Anytime.
And for podcast listeners, thank you for listening. Come join us live sometime, 6 p.m. Monday through Friday, 7 p.m. on Saturday for your daily edition of The Bullet. And everybody else, thanks for commenting, thanks for watching, and we'll see you next time.